Was a girl running in our group. She had a high-speed motor in a 40 Ford Coupe. She had a racing cam and a supercharged. Look at Buddy, hot rod and large. She's a hot rod. She's a hot rod.
We were talking about pedestrian deaths at the very end of the first segment, and this has got me up a tree. You know what?
That's probably a safe place to be under the circumstances.
I understand.
Yes.
They talk about the driving
okay.
being the problem, and that's pandemic driving, they're calling it.
Okay.
And they're all driving like that. They don't stop for lights. They don't stop. They run red lights. They run stop signs.
Okay.
And they're speeding.
That's a bad thing, you're saying.
Well, yes, it is. Charles.
just checking.
I'm describing how Charles got here.
I'm just
tonight.
trying to.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you think he got here so quickly?
Yeah, he got here so quickly.
Okay. Okay. So it's okay. I'm gonna crack my knuckles here. We're gonna just crack my knuckles.
I gotta tell you,
this is okay. I'm gonna call this unpopular opinion time. Okay.
All right.
Unpopular opinion.
All right.
I think that.
I know it's going to be unpopular with me. Go ahead.
I think that many of these deaths are ultimately the fault of the pedestrian, or many of them.
I'm not going to disagree with that part.
And here's where I'm gonna go on a little rant here. We've created a society where it's sort of like what's happening right now is counterintuitive to basically, let's just say, like evolution. Evolution states that whoever's biggest gets the right of way.
Yes,
like if you have two boats coming at each other, the joke was who has the right. Well, the bigger boat has the right of way.
Absolutely. What was the biggest wake?
We've shifted, and this is actually, you can blame California for a lot of this. We shifted the way things go. Is it used to be, I'm the pedestrian. And again, I'm a guy who spent 20 years in Chicago. I've seen this evolve. I've done it myself. I'm just as guilty. We've gone from, everybody standing there at the crosswalk, waiting for the little man to flash and crossing the street at the light, where you're supposed to, when you're supposed to.
I won't disagree with this.
And now we have, again, I see this every day driving downtown, whether it's, driving, it's like a video game where I'm driving down the middle of the road. Now all of a sudden I've lost 2 lanes because of bike trails and buses.
Yes.
But so here I am, I'm driving down the road, paying attention, not scoofing around, and all of a sudden a bike comes flying by one side, and then a guy comes running across the street on the other side on his phone, not paying attention.
Oh.
But our government or our society, however you want to put it, has told these people, you can go ahead and jump out in the middle of the street, and it's not your fault. I said, that's fine, but you're dead, but it wasn't your fault.
Yeah, you're not anymore alive. It's not your fault. You were dead right, they call that.
And so part of this becomes like, as a pedestrian, you go, well, he was in the right. He's dead, but he was in the right. It wasn't his fault. So this becomes that philosophy of, we've created a society that says, go ahead and jump out in the street, and all these cars, and they even do this in California, George. You're talking about enforcement. I've seen this happen where they have, because they have nothing better to do in California. The police officers dress as like little old ladies. Okay. And then the second the law is the second that person steps off the sidewalk into the street, every car has to stop. Right. So the pedestrian gets the right of way. So everybody has to stop and let them cross. But all we need is one guy to not notice them, or one, you know what I mean? Like that's the thing is you've created a society where the second a pedestrian walks in the street, everybody has to stop and wait for them.
Okay, I'm going to give you the opposite side of that, and I agree. Okay. Some of these deaths were caused by pedestrians not paying
on their
attention.
phone, texting, and whatever.
Exactly, crossing in the middle of the block. But back when everybody was doing the speed limit or close, or they weren't running lights, not planning on running lights, or making right turns on red without even stopping. Before all that, we didn't have this problem. There was less death.
We always had problems with this. Has always been a problem.
It's as much the problem of the car as it is the pedestrian.
Right. Both of them are at fault ultimately.
I will give you that. But the car, the driver of the car is the one that has to pay attention to everything around him when he's driving.
Right.
Okay, and a safe speed on this street is posted at 35 mile an hour.
Right.
That's it. If you're doing 35 mile an hour and somebody runs out in front of you, you will stop before you hit them.
So put it this way. I have a habit. If I'm driving like in a residential neighborhood, the second I see like a bouncing ball or a dog or anything like that, I immediately slow down.
Oh, me,
because Mr. Murphy
crawl.
says the second I see, if I just see one a block away, Mr. Murphy says one of those kids or that dog or that ball or whatever, something's going to come out in front of me. So, I mean, that's part of common sense. So if I'm in a neighborhood, yeah, obviously there are people in the world that are speeding through neighborhoods.
And if you're downtown and people are on the sidewalk and they're crossing in the middle of the block, you know they're going to do it.
Well, and so that becomes what I talk about, the two habits. You have like the suburban driving habit in my neighborhood, and then you have the downtown Chicago drive.
I definitely it's different.
When you're driving downtown, I just say everybody's out to get you. Every car is out to get you. Every bicycle, especially the cabs, all those guys are out to get you. So it's a different mentality.
Oh yeah.
And so, but again, that's the mentality. You don't see in your neighborhood in the suburbs. You don't see people just running out in the middle of the street.
You don't have people all over the place. It's not crowded.
But in Chicago, you cannot go a block or two without somebody just running out in the middle of the street, crossing the middle of the road. Not paying attention.
I don't doubt it a bit.
And I assume that, so you have your traditional, kid runs out in the street behind a car, nobody saw him. So this becomes that question again that we have, again, going back to like me driving the Tesla. The Tesla tells you if somebody's out in front of you. It literally says, it's funny because it like knows how tall they are. It knows if it's a child or an adult or whatever. So going back to the technology, I'd say one of the things that can help with this, because ultimately the plan here is to cut down on deaths, is that having that extra set of eyes, that extra LiDAR that senses the kid running out in the street before you can even react, your car stopping, that's going to be part of this solution.
So you're telling me that a Tesla can identify a child, but it runs into the back of fire trucks?
Well, we can go back.
Know a fire truck when it sees one?
We can go back to that commercial during the Super Bowl.
I didn't see it.
I've heard about it, but it was very disparaging to the technology of running over dummies or whatever. Well, but again, it's not meant to, and that's the whole point, is that it's an extra set of eyes.
Well, see, now you don't hear about Teslas running people over or something like that.
We've seen videos.
You don't hear that, but the Google cars and the other Chevys that they were converting, and the one Chrysler they converted, all these people have run over people.
No, I remember.
Or run over something.
I saw a video, I think it was like in Vegas or something, where a woman in her bike, it was like a dark street, couldn't see her, just pops out of the bushes, and the Tesla just stops, and all of a sudden, you don't even see why it stopped, and all of a sudden, this lady and her bike are in the middle of the road.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
The Tesla's got that technology down pat.
And so obviously,
you don't hear about them, having a problem with it.
And that's the goal ultimately, is that every vehicle, regardless of you consider it autonomous or not, should have that technology.
So we're not going to worry about the pedestrians because it will stop anyway.
Well, okay, but then that's going to create a new problem, because the pedestrians will go, well, the cars are just going to stop for me. I can just jump out in the middle of the street, in the middle of traffic, in the middle of rush hour, and then the cars are all just going to stop.
Well, you know what? If you go with that theory, because you're going to be limited in your speeding anyway, Charles.
Well,
the government's going to have the control of your car.
We're going to have to hack that chip, I think.
There's going to be a governor on it.
Yeah, we're going to have to bypass that sucker.
I'm just saying, you're going to do what you're told, by God. Anyway.
Okay, so rant over. So, I mean, again, so ultimately I'd say this isn't, it's not like, not many people are like sitting on the front porch and a car shows up and runs them over, right? You have to be out in the middle of the street.
Right.
And so there's that two factor of, yes, the driver should be paying. Even like I said, go back to Chicago, just because the light turns red doesn't mean we should step out into the street
I also would wonder how many of those cars actually broke something and went off the road and hit somebody or something. Because there's a lot of cars out there right now that they're on the road too long. They got to go.
Okay.
But nobody's buying cars.
Right.
Because of the prices. So
that's an interesting observation. Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of cars that have broke or had flat tires or whatever.
Yeah.
Because people just,
Well, and then you get a flat tire on the highway, and then you get out of your car, and then now you become...
Sap. Yeah, now you're a statistic. I understand that can happen. I really do. But I think traffic enforcement, which they were complaining about also, they said the traffic enforcement is so lax right now. Mm-hmm. And it has... I see it. I see it every day in my town.
Well,
Ridge Road is a 70-mile-an-hour speed limit, apparently.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And Burnham Avenue is no better. And I'm on the busiest corner in town, and they run red lights. There's no enforcement of traffic.
Well, and the enforcement should be just because I'm going a little fast doesn't mean I'm a dangerous driver. There are people in the world that, that guy that has 3 bald tires and plastic in all of his windows and no headlights, he's the guy that we need to be focusing on. The guy that's running all the red lights, that's the guy you need to be focusing on instead of writing tickets for everybody going 7 miles over the limit.
I will tell you one real quick story. I never forget. Remember when they first got out with the baby spare? Mm-hmm. You didn't have a regular spare tire in your trunk. You had this little dinky thing. I was on the Dan Ryan.
It's always on the Dan Ryan, right?
I was on the Dan Ryan coming out of Chicago. I'm driving. I'm doing the speed limit or a little bit more maybe. And this guy passes me up in an old Oldsmobile Cutlass with 4 of those baby tires on it. And he's doing, I'm doing 60, so he's doing 70 with 4 baby tires. You're not supposed to go over 45 mile an hour on them. And you're not supposed to go more than 50 miles. I mean, you shouldn't wear them out. They shouldn't go bald.
I think I saw that guy the other day, but he's still driving like an '88 Escort with three spare tires.
Yeah, this was an old Cutlass.
It's always an old car too.
Oh yeah, well, it wasn't worth it. All right, we talked last week or the week before. We talked about the Alabama and the Hyundai subsidiaries, the people that are supplying Hyundai at the plant in Alabama, hiring 13-year-olds to work in the plant, kids. Young kids.
I mean, we call it an apprenticeship program.
Yeah, well, that's apprenticeship, all right. I mean, could you imagine sending your daughter off to work every day?
Well, I mean, my son needs to learn a trade. I mean, if I don't know.
No, not
he
that
needs to
way.
learn. I don't know.
No, they're schooling for that. Wow. South Korean automaker Hyundai Motor Corporation on Friday told shareholders that it would divest its controlling stake in a major Alabama auto parts plant, where Reuters last year documented children as young as 12 were working in that plant, around machinery. And you know how kids pay attention. Oh, my God. In a February 24th letter to shareholders from Hyundai CEO Jaehoon Chang, the company said recent audits at 29 of its direct suppliers across Alabama made it confident they are now in full compliance with underage labor laws. The audits began in last August, after writers first reported on this issue. They were rampant, and was conducted by an outside firm that reviewed the documents and did on-site inspections. Hyundai provided a copy of the letter to Reuters. Well, we hired our inspector to go look for any kids that might be working in the plant, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, this is just wrong. I think somebody needs to pay a big fine to someone in the state of Alabama. There's billions of dollars at stake with this law that they're trying to do. And the dealers are asking the state lawmakers to make a law to pay them the same amount of money, the same amount labor rate as they pay customers pay. There's always been a disparity, Chuck. I don't know if you ever knew this.
Okay.
In a dealership, there's warranty. You bring your car in and they do all kinds of stuff under warranty, and the service manager or writer writes up the different things, and you get paid X amount of labor, because they work on hourly, how many hours you book in a week.
Right.
Well, that labor might be, the warranty labor is $110 an hour. I just saw the dealership over here, $180 per hour for customer pay work. So now if it's out of warranty, or it's something that's not covered by the warranty and you have to pay, you're paying $70 more an hour.
Right.
To get your car fixed. Well, that's what the dealers are trying to do. Now, let me remind you that 2021 was the best year the dealers ever had in the history of American cars, where they all made so much money by charging so much for these cars because they didn't have enough cars to sell, so they made more money per car. And that's what they did. Well, the dealers now, a group of state dealer associations, are petitioning state legislators to close the historic gap between customer pay and warranty reimbursement, leaving automakers backpedaling to defend their bottom lines. I mean, the big guys, Ford, Chevy, Chrysler, For nearly as long as there have been warranties, automakers and auto dealers have battled over factory reimbursements for warranty work. But now it appears the dealers have opened up a successful new front in their decades-long struggle. This time on the terrain of accommodating state capitals, where friendly legislators in some states are introducing amendments to franchise laws that mandate such higher payments for covered repairs. You're gonna put the big boys out of business. This is billions of dollars. This is not one dealer. This is every dealer and every mechanic and every dealer pumping out $180 an hour instead of $110 when it's under warranty. So far, dealers have been successful in a handful of states, including Illinois, Wisconsin, and Montana. But already the impact has been dramatic. Nearly $250 million in additional payments sent to dealers in just the first year after manufacturers in Illinois were required to pay retail labor rates for service, according to an automaker's umbrella group. Now additional states, Colorado, California, Texas, and others, are lining up to introduce similar stuff. They're going to try and do the same thing with franchise laws. If this strategy spreads further across the map, dealers could realistically divert billions of extra dollars annually from the automakers' bottom lines to their own already profitable service departments. This is wrong. What's wrong about it is if the manufacturer says it should be $110 per hour to repair these cars, this is what it's worth, why are we as customers paying substantially more than that, mostly? Not every dealer bumps it up as high as this, but we're paying more because it's called customer pay. That's the gravy in the service department. When I was in the service department, the gravy came on yellow tickets. The other ones were warranty tickets, the white ones, So that's just how it works. And we were down to $35 an hour at that time. We were charging $35 an hour. I don't think they were getting $30 from the warranty people. But that's 1969 too. Sorry about that. I'm an old man. That's all right. Anyway, this whole thing, this disparaging of payments is not correct in my opinion, on a couple different ways. Number one, why is it so much more for the consumer than the manufacturer? Is the manufacturer saying that's a fair price, or is the big price is our price a fair price? I have a labor rate at my place. Okay, it's $109, and it's been that way forever. Not forever, for a year. And it's time to raise it. Everybody else is raising their stuff because of the pandemic, and they're making so much more money. Oh my God, there's so much money out there that the auto mechanics are. This is the time to be an auto mechanic in a small shop. They're just fixing cars left and right. Nobody's buying any. And the dealers, of course, they did this to themselves, by the way. I've got a story for our closing segment I want to tell you about General Motors and their trucks. But this whole deal with different payment for the two repairs, same repair, but if it was under warranty, it'd be a whole lot less. That's just, there needs to be a happy medium there. There needs to be a middle ground that can be found.